Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and I welcome you guys to another Advanced Wars 2 video. Yes, it's time to do some more Advanced Wars. I know that you guys have been asking for it a lot. I'm really sorry for not providing more Wars content, but this time around I got a special treat for you. It's something that's been requested a lot. This time around I'm going to be talking about how I make maps, and a little bit about Advanced Wars 2 map design. It's something that I know a lot about. I've been making a lot of maps for many years. I usually do it on the Game Boy, on the cartridge itself though. I usually don't make maps on the emulator. Because, as you know, I play a lot of Advanced Wars 2 with my friends, and you may also know that the maps that follow Advanced Wars 2 aren't exactly good. I mean, Advanced Wars 2 is a fantastic game. The developers made a really fantastic game, a great campaign and all that, but they kinda didn't know much about map design. It just wasn't really something that they thought a lot about. And if you haven't played Advanced Wars 2 against the human opponents on a real well-designed map, then you've been missing out. You really haven't played Advanced Wars in its full glory. And in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit about map design, how to make a good map. It's really easy once you get into it, and I'm going to teach you some basic systems and basic ideas on how to go about making your map. But first of all, I'm going to be showing you guys just some standard maps, and I'm going to be talking about a couple of words or keywords that I'm going to be using a lot during my map design, so you guys just won't be confused and wonder what the hell I'm talking about. So we're going to go into Bean Island right here. Bean Island, of course, is one of the oldest maps in Advanced Wars history. It's most of the classic maps are taken from older Wars games. This one in particular was featured on the Game Boy Wars and the Famicom Wars. I think it was the first map they ever made, and it really shows because it's really fucking bad. Now it's a classic, of course, and I played many games on this map, but it really does suck. It's really poorly designed. I'm going to explain exactly why. So, one of the things that I'm going to be talking a lot about is something that I called the point of conflict. Now, of course, in Advanced Wars 2, you build your units and you send them towards the center, or you send them towards where the properties are. Advanced Wars is a game all about capturing properties and killing your opponent. And the point of conflict is essentially where the players will meet, and it's usually in the center of the map, and it's usually based around the center properties. Now, there's something called contested cities. These two cities right here are contested. This city right here will be captured by player red, and this city right here will be captured by player blue. Well, almost 100% of the time, unless they choose to ignore it. There's very little either player can do to prevent the other from taking these cities, which makes these two cities right here the contested cities. And in some aspect, maybe all these four cities can be considered contested, because both of the players have the opportunity to interrupt the capping. So a majority of the fighting on this map will take place right here. There will be some units down here, of course, maybe some indirects shooting back and forth. There will be some infantry crossing the mountains. But for the most part, this is where the fighting will take place. This is the point of conflict. And the point of conflict is very important. A good map should have multiple points of conflict. When you only have one point of conflict, essentially what's going to happen is that both players are just going to slam their units into this very center of the map, and it's basically just going to become a slugfest of who can inflict the most damage, and one of the players are going to get an advantage and just steamroll the other player. Now, for example, take a look at this little point right here. This map actually isn't mirrored, and that's something that I'm going to be talking a lot about too. Mirrored maps are basically, well, it looks mirrored. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that the map is similar on every side. As you can see right here, each player has as many cities. They're in the same locations. The road is similar. The mountains are similar. The bases are similar. Everything is mirrored, which means that this map is quote-unquote balanced. But it actually isn't mirrored in every single aspect. Like, you have this little weird sea tile right here. And what's funny about the sea tile is that if we replace this sea tile with a grass tile, then suddenly we would have 2 points of conflict, because units would be able to go through here, this pass that are here as well. Now, of course, there aren't any cities down here, so it would be a secondary point of conflict, because, again, most of the fighting happens up here, because here's where the cities are. I also think that this map would be a lot more interesting if these cities right here didn't start on the blue and red player's side. You could even make it even more interesting, and you could switch it around so that the blue cities are here and the red cities are here. And that way, you would instantly start off with a capture game. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself right now. So if we replace this sea tile with a grass tile, suddenly there would be 2 points of conflict. You would be able to attack through here. It would be a weak attack because there's very little to take down here. But if I remade this map in, you know, my own design, what I would do is I would probably remove this mountain right here to give players a different avenue of attack. And I would most likely place a green tile right here and maybe add 2 cities here and 2 cities here. That way, you kind of shift, you divide the center of attention into 2 fights instead of just 1. And essentially what you do now is you create a lot more depth to the map because the player have to choose, okay, do I go for the southern path or do I go for this northern part of the map? If I send too few units up north, the blue player is going to overwhelm me and is going to get all of these cities. But if I completely neglect the south, these cities are going to fall. What I do, what I prioritize, what is he building? This really separates a good map from a weak map. I'm going to be looking at some of the other classic maps, like for example, Crater Isle. It's also a classic. We're actually going to be setting Fog on because I like to play with Fog of War, and I think that everyone should play with Fog of War because Fog of War is the true essence of Advanced Wars. It really makes the game a lot more Advanced War-y. Now, Crater Isle is not a very good map either. Most of the classic maps are terrible, but at least it has 2 points of conflict. You have this little forests area right here, which is the secondary one, I'd say, and then you got this very open space over here with all these cities. Now what's going to happen, of course, this map isn't balanced at all. The blue player starts with far fewer cities, so it's a handicap map, so to say, which means that, you know, if you have a really bad friend, he can play on the red player side, and you can still play without needing to handicap your own play. You can play at your full strength and try to take him, but it's really fucking hard. So this is like the primary point of conflict, these 4 cities right here. You will take these 2 cities. There's nothing red player can do to compete with that. And red player will most likely get these 2, but they will still be somewhat contested. So it's not a good map, but at least it has multiple points of conflict, which is a good thing. Now, there are some decent maps in the map pool. Let's see if we can find a couple. Most of the classic ones are bad. I would really go for the versus maps. Little Island is a map that is probably the one that I played the most. Little Island is like the go-to, we have 15 minutes, want to play an Advanced Wars game. Little Island is very basic, in that it's a very short, very small map. And it's actually one of the better ones because it's very simple and basic. There's not really a whole lot to it. However, it's vastly unbalanced because the red player simply has an advantage of starting first, which is something that I'll talk a lot about later. But essentially, Little Island, oh, it's snowing, have essentially 4 contested cities in the middle. The point of conflict happens right here. And it's really all about capturing these cities. Now, normally the red player gets to capture this city and the blue player gets to capture this city. And you have these 2 cities which are contested. And normally it becomes a stalemate between blue having these 2 and red having these 2. And it's really just about trying to get these 2 cities right here. And the players who can do that wins. However, red player has slightly more forests. I always found that these forest tiles right here are really strong. Because essentially, I always felt like blue player was a little bit exposed right here in that he has both of his cities kind of like in the open. It sounds a little bit weird, but you kind of have to play this map to understand. I always felt like the red player had a distinct advantage here, but that's probably also stems from starting first. So, as I said, go to the versus maps if you want some good ones. Sun Canal is really bad. But there are some decent ones. I really like... we can actually talk about Hourglass Isle and explain why exactly that sucks so much. Hourglass Isle is probably one of the worst maps. And so this map right here really fucking sucks. Now, you may say, well, Mangs, it has multiple points of conflict. No, really, it doesn't. I mean, it's called Hourglass Isle and it looks like an hourglass, and that's fun and all, I guess. The big problem is this is the point of conflict right here. 2 cities and 2 road tiles and some mountains. This is the biggest choke point map in Advanced Wars. Essentially, what happens is you have 2 bases here, 2 bases here, that just builds indirect units. It's really just a slugfest in the center here. Now, you can send units around. The problem is there's no cities here, so there's no reason to even be out here. And even if you do send a unit around, what is it gonna do? I mean, if it comes out here, it's just gonna get killed. So Hourglass Isle is a good example of how to not design your map. Anyway, so we've talked about points of conflict, mirrored maps, contested cities. So the first thing I always do when I build a map is I fill the map with sea. And the reason why I fill the map with sea is because I prefer to have my maps take place on islands. That doesn't necessarily mean naval combat. It just means that I like to have multiple small islands. I don't like to use the entire map. Usually, if I use perhaps 70% of the map. It depends. This time around, I'm going to be making a small map, just for some quick. I'm not going to sit around for 2 hours and make a map, even though I do love making large maps, and I think large maps are the most fun. I prefer to have 1 3-hour Advanced Wars game compared to like 4 smaller ones. So what you want to be doing first is you want to be building your point of conflict first, and then you want to place the HQs. That's what I always like to do. And you want to use those horizontal and vertical counter you have in the top left or sometimes in the top right, depending on where these things are. You want to use them as a reference point. They're a great tool. Make sure you use them for all they're worth. They always let you know where you are, or the coordinates of where you are. And that's going to make it easier for you to like decide the center of the map and such. So if you want to find the center of the map, and this is always something that's really smart to do, this is essentially the center of the map. So what I do is I just make a line right here. So these 2 tiles right here are the center of the map, if you will. And you can essentially just make sure that you take away as much water as you can on each side. Like so. You can also do this simply by counting. But right now, you have basically a central island in the dead center of the map. It's not important that it's in the dead center. It doesn't have to be, but I prefer it to be. Makes it easier to mirror the map later. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a point of conflict. I'm going to make an island in the center. This is going to be the point of conflict. Now, naturally, what I talked about earlier was that you should have multiple points of conflict. And we'll get to that. But I want to make, these, this island right here. This is going to be like where a majority of the battle is going to be fought. And then after I make the point of conflict, I place the HQs. And what I like to do, I'm a really big fan of the maps being fought like this. So what I like to do is I like to have the HQ here for the orange player and the HQ down here for the blue moon player. And I'm going to do something that may seem a little bit weird. I'm gonna do this, and it's gonna become very obvious why. I'm gonna be explaining that later, but not right now. So I'm gonna make sure that the island is as big as the other island. Of course, I like to make the map mirrored. Now, one thing that you should note when placing HQs, I prefer to have the units facing each other on the map. I always thought that adds a very nice visual appeal to the map itself. So if you want to do orange star versus blue moon, always place the orange star on the left side and the blue moon HQ on the right side. That way you'll have the infantry facing each other. I always thought it looked really weird. Like, oops. To have like the units face the same direction when they fight each other. It just doesn't look good, you know. So unless you have a really big bias on what color you want to have, but you can also do green earth versus yellow comments, because green earth face the same way as orange star, and yellow comment and blue moon face to the left. So if you always want to do orange star versus yellow moon, or green earth versus blue moon, or orange, yeah, you get the fucking point. I don't need to over-explain this. So we're going to be placing the blue moon HQ. And I'm going to be placing it down here. I really enjoy the dynamic, as I said, of having the one player start up to the northwest and one player start down to the southeast. I always felt like that's something that creates very enjoyable maps. You can, of course, have the orange star HQ in the center and the blue moon HQ right here in the center. But I always felt like it just creates a nice aesthetic, and it's enjoyable to play. So, of course, we have the point of conflict island right here, which is where like the majority of the battle will be fought. So let's make another. Let's make make a smaller, longer island, so to say. Like this. This works. That looks good. So again, I am focusing on mirroring outs. Making sure that the islands are similar. So you can see right here, it's completely mirrored. Now, of course, it won't be completely mirrored. You can count the space between the ocean tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you can see right now, it's actually not mirrored perfectly. However, what you can do, what can actually work a little bit, is you can have these islands slightly. You can have this island slightly to the left, and you can have this island slightly to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I should just move it back, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. You know what? That actually works. All right. So now that we've done that, we've created the start location for the HQ. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we created 3 islands. 3 small islands. Of course, they're not going to be islands. We're going to be, you know, tying them together very soon. Now, before I start placing terrain, I like to build the foundation for the map itself. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be building another small island. Maybe... this sounds good. There's 3 spaces between this one. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see how this works. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 down. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this. That seems to work. So as you can see right here, the map is starting to take shape. So now that we've done that, maybe we actually extend this island a little bit further, like this. This works. And then perhaps we want to be making a tiny island over here. Maybe not that tiny, like this maybe. Let's see how this looks. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So the map is starting to take shape right now. So what we want to do now is we want to either use bridges, or we could simply just tie the land together. So for example, let's tie these 2 islands together, either by using a bridge. I kind of just like to see what I think look best, or what I think look the prettiest. I think that a map should look visually pleasing to the eye. At the same time, it should be practical to play on. Because if a map looks ugly, it just doesn't feel right to play on it, you know? So I guess we can have a bridge right here. Now, by default, I don't like single bridges, because single bridges means choke points, and I don't like choke points, because I feel like choke points creates boring gameplay. So I prefer to do the double bridges, but I don't like too many bridges. So in the center right here, I think I'm just gonna do a regular land piece. So I can do this, for example. So now we've kind of connected the map together on both sides. As you can see, the map is really starting to take shape right now. And the reason why I'm tying lands together like this, you can of course have, and I think that I will actually do this, I'll create like 2 small islands in each corner. I like building little islands. I feel like little islands are always cool to have on your map. Like so. As you can see, the map is starting to take shape. It's perfectly mirrored. It's similar on each side. And then it's time to connect the map in the center. As you can see right here, shapes are starting to unfold. Like so. Maybe we'll do a single bridge down here. And a single bridge down here. As I said, I don't like single bridges, but sometimes you can have single bridges. Just know that you'll be creating a lot of choke points over here, and you could potentially end up creating a really boring map. Actually, I think I'll do a double bridge right here. That way, it's going to be slightly easier to get units. But this area right here is still going to be a little bit choke pointy. But I have ways to fix that as well. I'll show you how to do that very soon. So I'm starting to become really happy about the amount of land that I have right here. This seems to be an interesting map to play on. So what I do then is I start to add shoals. And shoals are very important because shoals kind of extend the landmass. But it looks good, and I'll explain why. So what I like to do is I'll place some shoals right here. Essentially what I'm doing right now is I'm opening up the map a little bit. And suddenly, I don't want to have too many shoals. But what I did now is I opened up the center of the map. And I like shoals because shoals essentially work like roads. They're very easy to traverse. So essentially when you make shoals, I'm giving my units an opportunity to kind of like flank the enemy by using the shoals. Now, for example, if I usually don't place terrain just yet, but let's say that this area right here is heavily forested. It's probably not how I'm going to do the map, but let's say it is. You can use the shoals to quickly bypass the forest if you want. But of course, the shoals have 0 defense, so they're really risky to stay on. Even the plains are better with their 1 defense star. So by default, you don't want to end your unit's turn on shoals, but you can use them as roads, essentially. Now, I'm actually going to use a shoal right here to make this area a little bit less choke pointy. So essentially what I've done now is I've opened up. Now you can actually move here, here, and move like this. Isn't that great? However, it's still going to be pretty choke pointy over here. So any battle that's fought over this island will be pretty boring. So I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna widen up this island right here because I wasn't really happy with how that turned out. And this is, I do this a lot when I make maps. I decide to go back on my own ideas and just erase things because I noticed that this would be very, very, very like, if a player gets a rocket on this island, it's going to be impossible for the other player to take it. So I'm creating sort of a long and narrow map right here, which aren't necessarily fantastic to play on, but it could be fun if I do it right. So I'm going to keep placing shoals. Again, I feel like shoals are very essential when making a land map. Shoals are also important when making river or island maps, because of course if you build landers, and you rarely do, but sometimes you build landers, you need shoals to actually unload. I'm gonna make a shoal on this side. I'm gonna make a shoal on this side, like so. Also gonna make a shoal here and a shoal here. And maybe just, I also like to build them just for the aesthetics. I think that they look nice. They make the map look a little bit more complete, if you will. Now, of course, you gotta be careful, because you want to make sure that you mirror your map. Of course, I probably fucked up already. Yeah, I have. Like so. Now the map seems to be mirrored again. Alright, so we placed some shoals. I'm gonna place some over here as well, just because I like the way they look. And, of course, you can place some reefs. Particularly, there won't be any naval combat here, so you don't really need to mirror the reefs. But I feel like reefs just make the map look better. Now, of course, if you're gonna have boats on this map, I didn't think there were gonna be any boats on this map. I actually don't think I'm gonna have any boats on this map. So if you don't have boats, you can place the reefs wherever you damn like. I'm doing this a little bit in the wrong order. Usually this is what I'm doing now is kind of like the finishing touch of the map. So don't do it in this order. I just felt like doing it. If you're gonna have any boats, the reefs doesn't matter. But if you're gonna have boats, then you need to place the reefs mirrored as well, because the reefs are actually really important in naval combat because they're essentially forests in the water. Anyway, enough about that. So now that we placed the shoals, it's time to place the cities and the bases. And the cities are important because the cities are both terrain and they're essential to the game because they dictate how much income you have. So the first thing I do is I build the bases of each player. So I like to have 3 bases. I think 3 bases are pretty cool. I think that starting off with 3 bases is always a nice balance. Now, when I started making maps, I usually placed the bases like this, and I didn't think about it. And I was like, of course you have the bases gathered, but when I've evolved my map design, I'm like, why? Why should I have the bases around the HQ? Why not have one base here, one base here, and another base here? Why can I not do it like that? Because instantly what I'm doing now is I am I am kind of filling the whole map with units from the start. You will build infantry here, you will build infantry here, and you will send infantry. Suddenly, you populate a majority of the map from the start. You don't have to do it like this. You could just go the standard 3 base around the freaking HQ. But I honestly think that if you do it this way, it becomes a lot more enjoyable. Of course, you have to be very careful about mirroring it. Now, I might not be able to mirror it perfectly. I notice that I am often doing it the wrong way. And what I do is I just go back and fix it post-production, so to say. So even if I do screw up and I miss and I don't mirror my map perfectly, just calm your tits, guys. It's okay. You don't need to point it out. I usually do that. Anyway. So, now I just need to look at this. Mirroring a map requires your brain to think in a certain way, and it's a little bit annoying. I think this is one... I think this is how you do it. Yeah, okay. So now we have this, and the final base will go over here. And already we've created 3 deployment points where units can initially start off. Now, if you want to speed it up even further, you can have infantry start on the bases already. And now what you're going to do is you're going to speed up the map by saving the players their turn of simply just building the infantry. And it speeds up the map and saves you about maybe 30 seconds, a minute on just the first turn. Of course, you can take away a little bit of the... usually there's not really much of an opener anyway. Some people may be crazy and want to build a fast recon or something, but you can still do that. It doesn't really matter all that much. But anyway, now that we build the bases, it's time to build the neutral cities. And you always want to be placing the neutral cities in the point of conflict first, because that's where they really will matter. So right here, this will be the point of conflict. So what I like to do is I like to build 4 cities in the point of conflict. And then if you really want to be ballsy, you can have perhaps build 2 more, like this. We'll have to see. But we'll start off by 4. And then we'll have... maybe we'll do 4 here as well. 1, 2... maybe we'll do 3. 1 closer to the blue player, and... one closer to the red player, maybe? This could work. You know, we'll just do it simple. We'll do 2. Like this. So now we have 2 points of conflict essentially, or 3 points. This right here, this right here, and this right here. Now, since this map is so small, we don't actually need any additional bases. But what we can do, we could make this base gray and not have an infantry start there. That's something you could do to slow the map down a little bit. But honestly, I don't really understand what this would add to the map. So I think we're fine. We're fine. What I could do is I could do an airport, and I could make the airport gray. Now this is kind of where these 2 cities come in. I was thinking perhaps putting the airport on this island, but I think I'll just end up placing it right here. So you have to kind of make a choice. Do you go for the airport or do you go for the center immediately? Now, of course, the center should be heavily terrain, and I'm going to be placing... Usually I do place the cities and terrain a little bit in between each other. I don't just do the cities and then the terrain. I do them... Once I've created or placed the cities in the point of conflict, I make the terrain for the center. And the terrain for the center will be very essential to how the map will play out. I usually like to do a couple of mountains. You can do this, for example. Where you're going to end up is you're going to have like a lot of merry-go-round battles happening right here. However, I do like to have the center open. So what you can do is you could do 4 mountains like this. And then what you can actually do is you could have like a forest patch in the center. It's going to make it very valuable for the player who can get a foothold in this forest. It's going to be, you're going to open yourself up to a lot of attacks. I think we'll do it that way, actually. That didn't look so bad. That didn't look so bad. You can, of course, play around with rivers if you want to, but I don't feel like a river has any particular place right here. Of course, you can build a river to make it look a little bit nicer. Of course, you'll need to do, can you do bridges over rivers? I think you can. Yeah, you can do this if you want to. Of course, you create the problem of choke points again. But we'll do it this way. Could work. So, of course, roads is something that you could also add later. I prefer not to have too many roads, because I feel like I like to have my terrain a little bit heavy, so to say. Having too many roads kind of like, it opens up the map too much. You can have roads, just I don't like having them everywhere. So, this looks like a nice point of conflict right here. We can do another forest patch right here. Maybe add one here and one here. So it's all really like, there will be a lot of fighting taking place right here. A lot of fighting. This could be enjoyable. These are nice areas to put up artillery right here. And it will be really hard to take these cities. Now the problem with the way that I've designed the map right now is that red player will take these 2 cities and blue will take these 2 cities, and that's really going to be about it. So I'm going to spice it up a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit, instead of just having 4 cities, I was thinking, I could do it like this. By doing that, I change it up essentially a little bit. Could even add a little bit more forest like this. Suddenly I've changed the complexity of the center a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit easier for blue to assault this city. It's gonna be a little bit easier for red to assault this city, essentially. Now what I could do, I said that I don't think bases had any part in this map. What I could do is I can add a base right here. And a base right here, and suddenly I've made these 2 areas right here a lot more important. A lot more important. Now the problem about placing a base in the center, I usually don't like placing base in the center because whoever gets this base will win. It's really that simple. So maybe we don't do that. However, what we can do is we can make multiple cities in the center, or at each of these areas right here. So let's create some mountains. I do like mountains. Could place one right here. One right here. So you can see they're still very mirrored. Place another mountain right here. Close the terrain a little bit, but don't close it too much. Close it a little bit. Give some forest for the players to hide in, but don't give them too much. If you give them too much forest, you're gonna make the map really boring. And so yeah, it feels like we have nice 3 points of conflict right here where people will fight a lot in the center, and it's going to be really nice. There's some airports in the center. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to be placing cities for each player to capture. These are not contested cities. These are just regular cities. And there should be some. And the reason why there should be some is actually pretty important, because by creating gray cities near the players, you give the players a choice. You can either stay and you can capture these cities right here. Just notice that I don't really want the red units and the blue units on the HQ. There we go. You either have to stay and capture these cities to boost your early game income, or you can send your infantry into the center to capture the contested cities, which will help you in the late game. And this is all about decision making. I like having the cities on the coast right here. Always looks so good. So, and also, of course, I want to be building an island. Maybe not with that many cities on it. I think we'll do 2 cities on the island. That doesn't look good. Again, I want my maps to look good. Like so. Place some cities right here. This is starting to look really nice. Was that correct? I think that was correct. Yeah. So I think we have 16 more properties to place, but I think that you don't need to use all of the properties. If you do that, you're gonna end up inflating. You're gonna end up inflating a lot of the economy. Essentially, there are 60 properties in total, which means that there will be 30 properties on each side in optimal maps, which means you're gonna get about 30,000 income per day. Which is a little bit too much, in my opinion, for this map. You can also replace some of the cities with silos. This is something that I do a lot. I think that silos are a little bit icky because they can really tilt the game in either player's advantage. But we could do a silo on each island. It gives the player some incentive to go out there. Using a silo in the right time can really help your game out a lot. They're really critical in how you use them. Usually my friends aren't a big fan of silos. I usually don't use them, but I like them, actually. I like them. So now comes the phase where I'm just going to be placing a lot of forests. Essentially just to make the map look nice. Because, let's be honest, not a lot of things are going to happen on these smaller islands right here. Maybe place some forest around the HQ just to make it look nice and forested. Wait a minute. Seems like I fucked up a little bit. So, just noticed that this part of the map wasn't mirrored. There we go. Oops. Of course, some of these forest tiles are gonna mess up the pathing of the units, so they do matter a little bit. Not saying they don't. But right now we can see that the map is starting to take shape, and I could probably spend a lot of time like tuning this map and just, you know, I probably need to play it a couple of times to see how it plays out. You can kind of have you can get a basic idea of how this map is gonna unfold. Now, before I leave you guys, I'm gonna be showing you guys something very important. This is something I do with every single map. If you ever played Hearthstone, the player who goes last in Hearthstone gets the coin and an extra card, and this is to make up for the tempo advantage. Now, I wanted to save this for last. The blue player will always have a tempo disadvantage since red player starts first, which essentially is a huge advantage in Advanced Wars, because red player will get to the center faster. How I balance this out is I place an infantry on blue player's HQ. Essentially what this means is that blue will be able to move his infantry before red gets to move his infantry, essentially. And in this case, I'm actually going to delete the infantry, and the reason why I'm going to delete the infantry is because essentially now blue has a tempo advantage in that he gets to move his infantry, whereas red has to spend his first turn building 3 infantry. So by the time this infantry gets to move, this blue infantry will actually already be here, which will give blue a little bit of a tempo advantage. We could even move the infantry up here if we really wanted to, and I think I actually will do that. And I like to balance this out because I feel like 1 extra infantry for the player who gets the second turn kind of balances it out, because he'll get to capture more properties and it's going to balance itself out in the end. But going first is a huge advantage. This is why none of the Advanced Wars maps are balanced, because the starting player usually doesn't get a disadvantage as a result of being first. So essentially how this map is going to work is that there's going to be units coming from all of these 3 angles right here. It's essentially going to be 3 small battles. And I think it could be somewhat enjoyable to play. It's not my greatest work, but I did make this on the fly. My greatest map that I play with a lot of my friends is called Vaitupigu. I'm not even going to explain the name, but it looks kind of like this, just a lot better. I wish I could show it to you guys, but it's on the cartridge. But essentially, that's how you make a very basic map in Advanced Wars. I'm not sure if I answered all of the questions you guys may have about map design, but feel free to ask them in the comment section, and let me know if you want me to do any other videos on anything else related to map design. Let me know if you like the video. Please leave a like. That really helps out a lot. And if you do that, I might make more Advanced Wars content for you guys. So that is basic map design by Mangs. There's probably a couple of things that I haven't covered, But there is a lot to talk about when it comes to advanced force map design. But hopefully this was a little bit helpful for you guys. So you can go and make some maps of your own. Remember to name it, of course. Very, very important. Anyway, my name is Mangs, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.